بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, you all know the hadith in which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam explains us إن الحلال بين وإن الحرام بين وبينهما أمور مشتبهات. Halal is clear, haram is clear, and in between are doubtful matters, unclear matters, gray area. We don't know, is it part of this or is it part of that? And the Prophet Muhammad said, whoever stays away from the haram, from the unclear stuff, forget the haram, that's a no-brainer. The unclear stuff, he will have preserved his religion and his honor. And whoever falls into the unclear matters, for verily, he has fallen into haram. And this hadith deserves much explanation and guidance, and it's not for nothing that Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala has chosen this hadith in his collection of Al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyah. But let's go to the end of the hadith. ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت or إن صلحت صلح الجسد كله. And verily, inside of the body is a piece of flesh. If it is good, the whole body will be good. These people are just crazy. And if it's bad, the entire body will be bad. ألا وهي القلب. Verily, it is the heart. Not going into too much detail, straight to the point. Down here in this dunya, our victory, our success in the akhirah is through purifying our heart. Full stop. My people, those of them this morning, they're in shape. So people, if we are not making efforts to purify our heart, we're doomed, because everything we'll do will be bad. Sun Tzu said, know yourself, know your enemy. Wallahi, profound. Know yourself and know your enemy. It's in The Art of War, book that you all need to read. I'll talk about that inshallah in a video if I still get around to do it. And Allah tells us a lot about us. And Allah also tells us about our enemy, Shaitan. What does Allah tell us about us? We like quick pleasure. We are impatient. We need to get it, and we need to get it now. And Allah tells us about Shaitan. And Shaitan already knows that there is only one category of people that will be saved from his plot. إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. Ikhlas, we always call it that sincerity. But mukhlas, let's go a bit more into the meaning of ikhlas. Ikhlas means what is purified from stains. Allahul Musta'an. back to what I'm trying to tell you. Purifying our heart is the aim of the game. And shaitan is trying to do the opposite. Now Allah tells us something very interesting about shaitan. It's in Surah Al-Isra, I believe. Allah tells us that shaitan said, لَأَحْتَنِكَنَّ ذُرِّيَّتَهُ. Wallahi people, this is from the most profound things to think about in this battle that we're in. لَأَحْتَنِكَنَّ ذُرِّيَّتَهُ. Dhurriya, you've heard that. That means offspring. What is the meaning of لَأَحْتَنِكَنَّ? How did that slip under the radar? You're not applying Sun Tzu's principle, know your enemy. Allah tells us about our enemy. Al-Hanak is this here. It's this bone right here. So what does La Ahtanikanna mean? From the most amazing creatures Allah has created are camels. You know, I've been to zoos, I've seen all kinds of amazing things, but wallahi, like being here in the Arabian Peninsula and seeing camels, observing them, how they are just amazing creatures. And from the noteworthy things is that camels are extremely strong animals. And accidents happen. A camel can grab like a decent sized camel. I'm not saying like the super camels, but a decent sized camel can grab a human being by the neck and just throw him through the air like a frisbee. And that happens, especially when male camel kind of loses it. Tends to get very dangerous, and his mind is a bit out of control. He can grab his own herder and kill him like that. So isn't it amazing how Allah has granted us camels and submitted them to us? Us weak creatures, we are physically weak. And the Bedouins, I think we can all agree, from a technological point of view, they're not very advanced, and they've never been. Rather, they are the example, you know, in the Arab world. You say, you know, a Bedouin, well, you know, he's somebody who lives an extraordinarily simple lifestyle, and he doesn't understand many of the things that are happening in what is called al-hadar, which is, you know, civilized society. Although what we mean civilized society, we mean something else, but like, you know, a society where you have a civilization with education, with, you know, technology development, etc. So this miskin little Bedouin, Allah gave him to control this animal that's maybe 10 times his weight. Through what? Through al-ihtinak. Al-ihtinak, people, is a way where the Bedouin camel herder, with a rope, he just hop, swings the rope around the camel's head, and you see that the camel's head is from all sides held by the rope. It's not covered in the rope, but it's held by the rope from every side. And now with this piece of rope, the human being can control the camel. Where are you going? What are you doing? What speed you going at? What direction you facing, etc. The shaitan, Iblis, kafana Allahu sharrahu, told Allah that this is what he's going to do to us. Iblis is not gonna forcefully push us into the filth. Iblis is gonna do something subtle to get hold of our head very gently, and from there he'll guide us into what will corrupt our hearts. Brothers and sisters, I really do hope you realize the gravity of what I'm trying to tell you right here, and that you realize what the battle really is about. It's about what's in here, and it goes through the way you think. It's not about putting a sword on your neck and making you do stuff. That isn't a strategy. So, this being the case, there is a very profound story that you all need to be told again. Many of you know it, but the way they teach us this story in school, they really camouflage up the gravity of what this story means. And it's the story of the Pavlov dog. Anybody who studied psychology for whatever purpose, if you're studying psychology for the sake of studying psychology, or you're studying psychology in education, you study psychology in business for marketing, etc., the Pavlov dog experiment is the gold standard and the absolute foundation to explore stimuli and, in between the lines, manipulation of the human being. So what does the Pavlov dog experience consist of? A dog in a cage, and in front of the dog is a green light and a red light. The dog is connected to an electric wire. When the green light comes on, tuck, a piece of meat falls in front of the dog. The red light turns on, tuck, the dog gets an electric shock. So when the dog sees the meat, he starts salivating. There's saliva that starts coming from his mouth, because the meat is what they call a stimuli. It's something that stimulates a physiological response from the human body. So the story we're being told is that Pavlov repeated this pattern for a number of times. Green light, meat. Red light, electroshock. And then he turned on the green light, but didn't give him any meat. But he saw that the dog still salivated. And then he did green light, electroshock, and the way it was written in our textbook, the dog started having des comportements aberrants in French, which means basically he started acting completely out of line. All right. So they told us at this stage of the story. So this shows that there are certain elements that trigger a response from the human beings. But that's only half the story. What this particular story is about is not the fact that we discover that there are elements that are triggering responses. This story is about copy-pasting the response from one stimuli onto something else to make that a stimuli for the same thing. Because that's what Pavlov did. He took the meat as a stimuli to elicit a physiological response from the dog. And now he wants that same stimuli, no, he wants that same response from another stimuli. So how does it work? You pair them until you wire in the mind of the living creature that this equals this. There, they go together. And then when you replace this with an electroshock, okay, the dog was used to getting electroshocks, but now you have this stimuli and this result that is contradicting, your mind can't handle it. All right, people, this is how the shayateen of our era manipulate us. This is how they do ihtinak to us. I'm gonna give you the most blatant example. Cuties on Netflix. What is Cuties? All I've seen is a little news report, like, you know, on a colleague shared that on the group, and he's written, warning brothers, this is very disturbing. And wallahi, it was disturbing. So you take, what is this, 10-year-old girls that from a male's fitra, we don't really find those attractive, because what we are attracted to is shapes and other elements that these little girls don't have. It's a very good thing that we're not attracted to these. So what does Cuties do? Cuties takes a whole lot of stimuli. The music, the clothes, the dancing that is like beyond suggestive, you know, the hip movements and all the stuff. These are all things that go on a grown, attractive woman to elicit a certain physiological response from men. And then they put all of these on a 10-year-old girl. Green light, piece of meat. Green light, piece of meat, green light, piece of meat, green light, piece of meat. Like, for decades and decades, we've had the green light, the piece of meat. We had this type of music, with this type of movement, dancing, with these types of clothes on the grown, attractive woman, with in movies, and, you know, for those who go to those places, you know, etc. That's our green light and our piece of meat. Now, what Netflix did, they removed the piece of meat and put something else. They want us to have the same physiological response to a 10-year-old girl. And wallahi, I believe that this filthy series Cuties has made the world a far more dangerous place for little girls. And brothers, it's time we wake up. That's for Cuties, but this, Allah Alam, how much is out there. Alhamdulillah, Allah preserve me from that filth. But I know many of you have been tried with this. And brothers, it's time we act like men and we have the courage to say no. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Following our discussion on Netflix and manipulation, this book right here, Inference, the psychology of persuasion, by a PhD called Robert Cialdini, explains to you to what extent, or not even to what extent, but what's, you know, some extent of what's absolutely out there in the public, showing you how they study the human mind and how to manipulate it. So he tells a story of an experiment other than the Pavlov dog that explains how stimuli is the way to hack into the human being to elicit behavior. So he tells us here, actually it's not my story, it's about mother turkeys. So the turkey bird, the mother birds, and it belongs to the relatively new science of ethology, the study of animals in their natural setting. Turkey mothers are good mothers, loving, watchful, and protective. They spend much of their time tending, warming, cleaning, and huddling their young beneath them. But there is something odd about their method. Virtually all of this mothering is triggered by one thing: the cheep sound of their younger chicks. And the entire book is based on this. Pay attention. Other identifying features of the chicks, such as their smell, touch, appearance, seem to play minor roles in the mothering process. If a chick makes the cheep noise, its mother will care for it, and if not, the mother will ignore it and sometimes kill it. The extreme reliance of maternal turkeys upon this one sound was dramatically illustrated by animal behaviorist M.W. Fox in his description of an experiment involving a mother turkey and a stuffed polecat. For a mother turkey, a polecat is a natural enemy whose approach is to be greeted with squawking, pecking, and clawing rage. Indeed, the experiments found that even a stuffed model of a polecat, when drawn by a string towards mother turkey, received an immediate furious attack. So you understand, you have the mother turkey, and they take this polecat. Don't really know what a polecat is, but you understand it's some kind of feline predator. They take a stuffed one, so it looks real, but it's stuffed. And they pull it close to the string, and just on the side of that animal, mother turkey goes in full combat mode, hitting it with beak, claws, and making terrifying noise, etc. When, however, the same stuffed replica carried inside it a small recorder that played the cheep sound of baby turkeys, the mother not only accepted the oncoming polecat, but gathered it underneath her. When the machine was turned off, the polecat model again drew a vicious attack. So you see, from the fitra of the turkey, of the female turkey that has chicks, when it sees this animal, it goes in full combat mode. And the way to hack mother turkey's system is not by disguising the polecat with feathers or anything like that, is to play this cheep sound that the baby chicks make. That particular sound is what triggers the nurturing motherly instinct of mother turkey. Then, folkies, so this is the first chapter after the introduction, called Weapons of Influence. And so the entire book explains to you how you have a human being that has a natural aversion, caution towards something. That is the mother's instinct to fight back that cat. And then there is the click, as he calls it. That is when the tape kicks in. Now, clack, the human behavior switches 180 towards that original thing that came to it. So the book explains to you what are the cheep sounds that they found in order to manipulate us, all in the perspective of marketing. All right? I read this book here in, the context of marketing research by the time I was in business college, and it is just amazing. Now, I would just like to go to the first chapter after Weapons of Influence and just show you the title of the chapter. I don't know if y'all can read this. It's called Reciprocation. Y'all know what that means? That means that if you see somebody that you identify with do something, it becomes okay for you to do that thing. In other words, you are male, female, fat, thin, tall, short, you have this hobby, you like this kind of food, you have, I don't know, passion for this kind of sport, halumma jarran. There is a profile of yours that they all study, by the way. You know that, right? YouTube. How do you think YouTube suggests videos to you? Because they study what you watch. And then the other shayateen along Facebook, etc. They study what you follow. They study what you look at, etc. They study your profile. What kind of guy are you? How are we gonna classify you? And then based on that, Netflix is gonna come along and it's gonna make a character that fits your profile. And that character is gonna do a whole lot of cheaps. That character alone is a cheap. But it's on top of that gonna do a whole lot of cheap to hack into your mind in order to get you to fall into filth. لَأَحْتَنِكَنَّ ذُرِّيَّتَهُ, the shaitan said. People, only dead fish swim along with the stream. Only dead fish swim along with the stream. Have the courage to swim against the stream, and if you die doing so. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.